The night was cold, darker than usual, and the ruined settlement lay in silence. Buildings stood broken, their walls scorched by fire. The streets were empty except for the sound of the wind that carried dust and ash.
Alia.
In the middle of this dead place, a small figure moved slowly, dragging her feet with every step. It was an alien girl. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale, and her eyes full of fear. What? She had nowhere to go. Her people had left her behind, too weak to fight, too young to matter. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and her legs shook with exhaustion. Every time she stumbled, she thought about lying down and never getting up again. But some small hope inside. Her heart kept pushing her forward. She had heard rumors, whispers, that humans sometimes passed through these lands. To her people, humans were outsiders, dangerous and unpredictable. But tonight, she prayed the rumors were true. She prayed one human, just one, might see her and not treat her like garbage. At the edge of the ruins, the glow of firelight appeared. The alien girl froze, her heart racing. Ooh. She crouched low behind a cracked wall and peeked.
Ah!
There, not far away, a human soldier sat beside a small campfire. His weapon leaned against a rock within reach, and his eyes scanned the shadows like a predator watching for threats. She hesitated. If he saw her, he might shoot. If she ran, she had nowhere to run. Her lips trembled, and she whispered to herself, "Please, please." Then, with the last of her courage, she stepped into the light. The human soldier reacted instantly. His hand grabbed the weapon, and in a heartbeat, the barrel was aimed directly at her chest. His voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding. "Stop right there." The alien girl froze, raising her thin hands in the air. Her whole body shook as her knees bent, and she collapsed onto the ground. She didn't have the strength to stand any longer. The human soldier's eyes narrowed. He had seen enemies fake weakness before, only to strike when close. He tightened his grip, ready to fire. But then she spoke. Just one word. Her voice was small, broken, but clear enough to be understood. "Help." The human frowned. His weapon slightly, but didn't relax. "You can speak?" he asked cautiously. The alien girl nodded, her head bobbing weakly. She tried to form more words, but her lips were too dry, her throat too raw. She clutched her stomach and coughed. The sound was so fragile, so painful, that even the soldier felt it. For a long moment, neither moved. The fire crackled between them, shadows dancing across their faces. The human studied her carefully, her bones sticking out, her eyes too big. For her face, her arms trembling as if they barely held her together. She didn't look like a spy. She looked like a lost child. Slowly, the human lowered his weapon, but kept it close. "Hey, if you're lying," he warned, "you won't live long." The alien girl didn't even understand his full words, but she caught the tone. She nodded quickly, desperate for him to believe her. Then, without warning, she fell forward onto the dirt, unconscious. The soldier cursed under his breath. "Damn it!" He glanced around the ruins, making sure no enemies were near. Against every rule in his training, against the voice in his head telling him this was a mistake, he stepped forward and lifted her small body. She weighed almost nothing. He carried her closer to the fire and laid her down carefully. She stirred faintly, her lips whispering again, "Help." The soldier opened his bag and pulled out a ration pack. He tore it open and held a piece near her mouth. For a moment, she didn't react. Then, as the smell reached her nose, her eyes fluttered open and she bit weakly into the food. She chewed slowly, like each bite took all her effort. Tears slid down her cheeks as she ate. The soldier watched in silence, his expression unreadable. He told himself he was only doing this to keep her from dying in front of him. He told himself he would send her away in the morning, but as the flames flickered, he noticed how she tried to stay awake, how she fought to eat despite her weakness. Something about her struggle reminded him of the war orphans he had seen back on Earth. He clenched his jaw and looked away. The alien girl finished the small piece of food and curled closer to the fire. Her eyes slowly closed, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, she looked at peace, The soldier sat back, still holding his weapon, but his aim was no longer at her. Instead, he watched the darkness beyond, keeping guard. Deep inside, he already knew the truth. Whether he liked it or not, he had taken responsibility for this stranger. And in that ruined settlement, under the cold stars, the first fragile thread of something unexpected was tied between them. Not enemy, not stranger, not yet family, but something in between, something that could grow if they survived the night. The morning came slow, with pale sunlight creeping through the ruined walls. The fire from last night had burned down to glowing embers. The human soldier woke first, his instincts sharper than rest. Years of war had trained him to never sleep too deep. He sat up quietly, hand already on his weapon, scanning the shadows. Then his eyes fell on her. The alien girl lay curled on the ground near the fire pit, her body trembling as if even in sleep she fought cold and hunger. She had survived the night, but barely. Her lips were dry and her breathing shallow. The soldier frowned. He told himself again that she wasn't his problem. He had his own mission, his own survival to think about, and yet he didn't wake her. Instead, he reached into his pack and pulled out another ration bar. By the time she stirred, the human was already chewing on his piece, pretending not to care. The girl blinked slowly, her eyes adjusting to the light. When she saw him, her body tensed, fear flashing across her face. She remembered the weapon pointed at her the night before. The soldier noticed. He sighed and tossed the ration bar onto the ground in front of her. "Eat," he said firmly. She stared at the package as if it were a trap. Her hands trembled, and she looked at him uncertainly. He raised his brows. "It's food, not poison. Go on." The alien girl finally reached forward with shaking fingers. She fumbled with the wrapper, not knowing how to open it. The soldier cursed under his breath, moved closer, and tore the packet open for her. She flinched at his sudden movement, but when the smell of food hit her, all her fear turned into desperate hunger. She stuffed the first bite into her mouth, chewing as if she hadn't eaten in weeks. Her hands clutched the bar so tightly her knuckles turned pale. She ate too fast, choking. "Hey, slow down," the soldier muttered. He grabbed his canteen and pushed it toward her. She stared at the metal container with wide eyes, hesitant again. "Drink," he said, softer this time. The girl obeyed, lifting the canteen with both hands, water spilling down her chin as she gulped. She coughed, then wiped her mouth with the back of her sleeve. Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time, there was something new in them. Not just fear, gratitude, but she didn't know how to say it. Instead, she held the empty wrapper close to her chest, as if afraid it might disappear. Then, in a broken voice, she whispered one word again. The same word from last night. "Help." The soldier studied her. She clearly didn't know many human words. Maybe only that one. But the way she said it wasn't just begging anymore. It was a plea for something deeper, something she didn't understand herself. "Help, huh?" he muttered, leaning back against a wall. "You're a problem, you know that? If anyone sees me with you, we're both dead." She tilted her head, not understanding his words but watching his face carefully. After a long silence, the soldier finally reached into his pack again and pulled out a second ration bar. This one he broke in half. He ate one piece, then handed the other to her directly. Her eyes widened. She looked at the food, then at him. Slowly, almost like a scared animal, she reached forward and took it from his hand. Her fingers brushed his glove for the briefest second, and she pulled back quickly, cheeks flushing faintly under her alien skin. She ate more slowly this time, stealing glances at him between bites. He pretended not to notice, staring at the broken sky above them, but inside, something shifted. He had seen many faces during war, faces of allies, enemies, strangers. But this girl's face, starved and bruised, yet still clinging to life, stirred something buried deep in him. He broke the silence with a question. "What's your name?" The alien girl froze. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Lips moved, but she couldn't form the words. It was clear she didn't know how to say her name in his language. "Figures," he muttered. "All right, forget it." But then she surprised him. She pressed her hand to her chest, tapped it twice, and looked at him expectantly. She wanted him to understand. The soldier raised a brow. I. She nodded quickly, repeating the gesture. He exhaled and shook his head. Yeah, well, I can't say that. I'll call you kid for now. Her eyes blinked. Rapidly, she didn't understand the word, but she understood the tone. It was softer, less threatening. For the first time since meeting him, her lips curved into a tiny, uncertain smile. The soldier looked away, annoyed at himself. He hadn't meant to make her smile. He just needed a way to call her. But now, with that faint spark of warmth between them, he felt the weight of something dangerous dash responsibility. As they sat in silence, the wind carried faint sounds, heavy footsteps, metal clinking. The soldier's body stiffened instantly, grabbed his weapon, and motioned for the girl to stay quiet. She tilted her head, not understanding at first, until he pressed a finger to his lips. Voices, alien patrols. Searching the ruins, the girl's eyes widened in terror. She knew those voices. They were her people. And if they found her here with a human? She shook violently. The soldier saw her panic and did something unexpected. He pulled his cloak from his back and threw it over her small frame. Stay down. Don't move, he whispered. She froze under the cloak. Holding her breath, the patrol passed nearby, their shadows stretching long across the ruined ground. The soldier kept his weapon ready, finger near the trigger, but his eyes stayed calm. The girl, hidden beneath his cloak, pressed closer to him. She could feel his heartbeat steady and strong, unlike her own wild racing one. For the first time in her life, she felt protected. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the patrol's voices faded into the distance. The danger slipped away. The soldier lowered his weapon with a quiet sigh. Close one. The alien girl peeked out from under the cloak, her eyes shining with tears. She whispered shakily, "Help." But this time, her voice was different. It wasn't just begging for food or shelter. It was something else. Something closer to trust. The soldier looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled the cloak tighter around her and muttered, almost to himself, "Yeah, maybe I will." The ruins grew quieter after the patrol left, but silence never meant safety. The human soldier knew that too well. His eyes scanned the horizon, always alert, always ready. The alien girl, still wrapped in his cloak, stayed close to the fire. She clutched the fabric like it was a lifeline, her wide eyes following his every movement. He didn't want her to follow him like a shadow, yet she did. He didn't want her to look at him with those pleading eyes, yet she did. And worst of all, he didn't want to care. But he did. The soldier sighed and sat back down. "Right, kid, you stay quiet, you survive, that's the rule." The alien girl tilted her head. She didn't understand all his words, but she caught the meaning in his tone. She nodded quickly, her messy hair falling into her face. For a moment, it seemed peaceful. The fire warmed the small circle of ground, the faint smell of smoke mixing with the dust of ruins. But then the sound came again, different this time. Not footsteps, not voices, a metallic growl. The soldier froze, every muscle tightening. He knew that sound. Scout droned. He motioned sharply to the girl to stay down, but she didn't understand. She looked around, confused, her fear rising again. The sound grew louder, the worry of machinery closing in. The soldier cursed under His breath, he grabbed her arm and pulled her close. She yelped softly, panic flashing in her eyes as she struggled against his grip. She thought he was hurting her, dragging her somewhere. Her people had done that before. Her memories screamed at her not to trust. Quiet. The soldier hissed, pressing her against the cracked wall of a ruined building. She fought for a moment, her small fists pushing weakly against his chest. Her voice shook as she whispered the only human word she knew. Help, help. Soldier clenched his jaw. Damn it, I am helping. The drone passed over the ruins, its red scanner light sweeping across the rubble. The soldier quickly pulled the girl under his arm and pressed her to the ground, covering her with his body. She stiffened, terror running through her. She thought he was trapping her, but then she felt it his body shielding her from the light. The red beam swept across the wall above them, held both of them, held their breath until the metallic grew faint and finally disappeared. The soldier let out a long sigh and rolled off her. That was too close. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes narrowing at the sky. More will come. They always come. The alien girl slowly sat up, her heart still pounding. She looked at him with new eyes now. His body had shielded hers. He hadn't needed to do that. He could have left her in the open as bait, but he hadn't. Her lips trembled. She pressed her hand to her chest again, repeating the small gesture she had shown him earlier. Then carefully, she pointed to him and repeated, "Help." The soldier stared at her. This time he understood the word differently, not as a plea. As recognition? Yeah, he muttered. I guess I helped. He stood and checked his weapon, keeping his voice low. Can't stay here. Too exposed. If you want to live, you stick with me. Understand? The alien girl blinked at him, not fully understanding the words but feeling the meaning. She nodded. The soldier started walking through the ruins, silent and steady. He didn't check to see if she followed yet when he glanced back. There she was, trailing behind him like a shadow. Her steps were clumsy, her body weak, but she forced herself forward. They reached an abandoned structure. Half its roof caved in, but still standing strong enough to give shelter. The soldier entered first, scanning every corner. Once he was sure it was safe, he motioned her inside. The alien girl stepped in slowly, looking around with wide eyes. It was nothing, just broken stone, a dusty floor, and shadows, but to her, it was shelter. She sat in the corner, pulling her knees to her chest. The soldier sat across from her, leaning against the wall. He reached into his pack again, pulling out another ration. He broke it in half and tossed one piece across the floor to her. She stared at it, then at him. Slowly, she crawled forward, picked it up, and ate more carefully this time. Her eyes never left him as she chewed. When she finished, she whispered something softly in her own language. Words he didn't understand. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. The soldier raised an eyebrow. What was that? She repeated it, pressing her hand to her chest again, then pointing at him. Trust, she tried to say in broken human words. The sound was rough, unfamiliar on her tongue. But the meaning was clear. The soldier blinked. He hadn't expected that. Trust? He repeated, almost to himself. He looked away, his jaw tightening. Wasn't sure he deserved that word. Trust got people killed. Trust made soldiers weak. But here she was, giving it freely, even after. Her life had been nothing but betrayal and abandonment. Silence filled the broken shelter. The fire they had built outside was only smoke now, but inside this ruined place, something else burned, something small, fragile, but growing. For the first time, the soldier didn't see her as just a burden. He didn't see her as an enemy. Either he saw her as someone who had chosen to trust him when she had every reason not to, and that trust was now his test. Could he protect her? Could he keep her alive? The answer wasn't clear, but one thing was certain, the bond between them had begun to change. The alien girl closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. The soldier watched her for a while, his weapon across his lap. Finally, he whispered to the empty air, You really picked the wrong guy to trust, kid. back. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't let her down. Not anymore. The day dragged on slow. Inside the ruined shelter, shadows shifted with the moving sun. The human soldier kept himself busy, checking his weapon, scanning maps, listening for enemy patrols. The alien girl sat quietly in her corner, hugging her knees, her big eyes watching him like he was the only stable thing left in her shattered world. Every few minutes, she tried to copy him, mimicking how he sat, how he held his pack, even the way he leaned his head back against the wall. He noticed it, of course, but said nothing. Finally, he muttered under his breath, "You're like a stray cat, just watching, copying, waiting for scraps." The alien girl tilted her head. She didn't understand his words, but she heard the tone. It wasn't cruel, was softer than usual, almost like he was, teasing her. Her lips curved slightly, the smallest smile. The soldier exhaled and shook his head. "Don't get used to this. Not keeping you." She blinked, not understanding. But her smile didn't fade. Hours later, when the sun dipped low, hunger came back. The soldier pulled out another ration. He broke it in half, as always. But this time, instead of tossing the piece to her, he held it out directly. She hesitated, then crawled closer. Her thin fingers brushed his glove as she took the food, and for the first time she didn't flinch. She ate slowly, carefully, all while looking at him. He watched her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Kid, you need to learn more words. One help and one broken trust isn't enough." She blinked, confused. He tapped his chest. "Me," and he pointed at her. "You." She followed his gesture. "You." He shook his head. "No, me." He tapped his chest again. Her brows furrowed. She tried again. "Me." The soldier chuckled. Close enough. For the next hour, he taught her simple words. Water, food, fire, me, you. She stumbled, mispronounced, laughed quietly when she got it wrong. But she tried. And each time she repeated a word, her eyes lit up. Proud of herself. When she finally managed to say human, pointing at him, his brows rose. "Well, look. At that, smart kid." She tapped her chest and mumbled something in her own language. It was soft, melodic, strange to his ears. Odd he guessed it was her real name. "Sorry," he said. "That one's above my pay grade." He thought for a moment, then muttered, "Maybe I'll just call you." "Kid works for now." She tilted her head. "Kid," he chuckled. "Yeah, that's you." For the first time, something like warmth filled the ruined shelter. But peace. Nert lasted long. As night fell, voices echoed in the distance again. Enemy soldiers. The alien girl stiffened, trembling. The human grabbed his weapon, checking the magazine. His eyes narrowed. The voices faded after a while, but the girl couldn't calm down. Her body shook violently, her breath coming too fast. She looked like she was reliving something painful. The soldier crouched in front of her. "Hey, breathe slow, you're safe here." She shook her head, whispering something in her own tongue. Voice broken with fear. The soldier hesitated, then reached out and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me," said, "you're safe." Her eyes filled with tears. She clutched his sleeve like it was the only thing keeping her anchored, and then, without warning, he slipped. He spoke words he hadn't planned, words that came out naturally. "It's okay, kid, I've got you. You're with me now. Family doesn't leave each other behind." The alien girl blinked, her lips parted, confusion on her face. "Family?" she repeated slowly, struggling with the new word. The soldier froze. He hadn't meant to say it out loud, but now it was too late. He sighed and nodded. "Yeah, family. It means someone you never abandon, someone you fight for no matter." "What?" she repeated softly. "Family." The word felt strange in her mouth. She tilted her head. "Me? Family?" Soldier looked at her for a long moment. His first instinct was to deny it, to keep distance, to remind himself this was temporary. But when he saw her trembling, her desperate eyes, he couldn't. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You. Family." The alien girl's tears spilled over. She covered her mouth with her hands, shaking all over, but this time not with fear, with something she had never felt before, belonging. She whispered the word again, broken but determined. Family. The soldier rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Don't cry, kid. It's not a big deal. But it was. For her, it was everything. That night, she didn't curl up far away in the corner. She moved closer to the fire, closer to him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, but her heart lighter than it had ever been. She whispered the word one last time. Before sleep took her, family, and the soldier sat awake, staring into the flames. He wasn't sure why he had said it. He wasn't sure if he could live up to it. But he knew one thing: she believed him now. And that meant he had to be careful. Because in this broken world, words were heavier than bullets, and he had just given her the heaviest word of all. The following days were harder than the alien girl expected. Food ran low, water ran lower, and every sound outside the ruined shelter carried danger. The human soldier never showed weakness, but she could see it in his tired eyes. He was pushing himself too far, watching the perimeter all night, walking miles in the day to scavenge, and always giving her the bigger share of rations. She noticed. She always noticed. One morning, her small body burned with fever. Her skin was hot, her breath shallow. She tried to hide it, curling in her corner of the shelter, but the soldier caught it quickly. He crouched beside her, placed a hand on her forehead, and cursed. You're burning up, kid. Damn it. She blinked at him weakly, whispering the one word she always leaned on. Help. His jaw tightened. I know. I'm trying. He rummaged through his pack, pulling out the last of the clean water, forcing her to drink. It wasn't enough. She needed medicine. Without it, she wouldn't survive. The human's eyes narrowed as he glanced toward the broken city outside. Somewhere out there, enemy supply stations still existed. And if they had anything, maybe antibiotics, maybe painkillers. It was his only chance. But it was suicide. He knew it. That night, after the girl finally drifted into restless sleep, the soldier strapped on his gear. He checked his weapon, loaded extra rounds, and pulled his jacket tighter. He looked at her one last time. She was trembling even in her dreams, clutching his cloak around her like a shield. Family doesn't leave each other behind, he muttered under his breath. Guess I'm really doing this. He left silently into the night. The ruined streets were dangerous. Patrols swept the area, drones buzzed overhead, and the smell of burnt metal hung heavy in the air. The soldier moved like a shadow, hugging walls, ducking into alleys, counting every step. His heart pounded, but his mind stayed sharp. Hours passed before he reached what he was looking for, a small enemy outpost, lights glowing faintly inside. 2 guards stood near the entrance, their strange alien armor reflecting the firelight. The soldier crouched behind rubble, studying their movements. His breath came slow and controlled. He knew this was reckless, but he had no choice. Just medicine, he whispered to himself. In and out. When the guards turned their backs, he moved, silent, quick, a blade in one hand, pistol in the other. By the time one guard realized he wasn't alone, it was too late. A flash of steel, a muffled gasp, and silence returned. The second guard spun, too slow. Single suppressed shot ended him. The soldier dragged both bodies into the shadows and slipped inside the outpost. His eyes scanned shelves of supplies, crates of weapons, and finally med kits. He tore one open, fingers trembling as he searched through vials and packets. Antibiotics, fever reducers, bandages, enough to save her. But as he stuffed them into his pack, alarms blared, red lights flashed. He cursed. Somewhere a sensor had triggered. Within seconds, footsteps thundered outside. He fought his way out, bullets flying, his body moving on instinct. He dropped 3 enemies in quick succession, his own shoulder burning as a shot grazed him. Pain lanced through him, but he forced himself forward. He ran through the ruins, pack slamming against his back, blood soaking his sleeve. Behind him, voices shouted in alien tongues, light sweeping across the darkness. He barely made it back to the shelter. The alien girl woke to the sound of heavy footsteps stumbling inside. She sat up quickly, eyes wide with fear, until she saw him. The human soldier collapsed to his knees, his shirt torn, blood dripping from his arm. In his hands he dropped a pack of medicine onto the ground. She gasped, crawling toward him. "Help!" She whispered frantically, reaching for the wound. He waved her off, forcing a weak smile. "Not me, you. This is for you." Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, pressing her small hands against his bleeding arm, trying desperately to stop it. The soldier groaned, lowering himself against the wall. "I told you, family doesn't leave each other behind. This is what family does." The alien girl froze. The word struck her again, heavier this time. Family. He had nearly died for her. For her hands shook as she opened the medical kit. She didn't know the tools, didn't know the labels, but he guided her. That one, the vial. "Yes, inject here." Her fingers fumbled, tears dripping onto the dirt, but she did as he said. Slowly, the fever inside her began to ease. The heat left her skin, replaced with exhaustion. She looked at him again. His face pale, his body trembling from blood loss. Her chest ached. She wanted to say more than help. She wanted to tell him what he meant to her. But the words weren't there. So she did the only thing she could. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering the broken human word he had given her. Family. The soldier closed his eyes, his hand weakly patting her head. "Yeah, kid. Family." The fire crackled softly as the night swallowed the ruined shelter. Outside, enemies searched the darkness, unaware of what had just been born inside these broken walls, bonds stronger than war, stronger than fear. And though both of them were wounded, one in body, the other in soul, they held on to the word that bound them together. Family. The soldier's wound healed slowly. Every night, the alien girl helped him change the bandages with trembling hands. She didn't fully know what she was doing, but she tried. Every time she pressed too hard, he hissed in pain, and she whispered the same broken word, "Sorry." He only grunted back. But deep inside, he wasn't angry. He was strangely proud. She had gone from a silent, terrified stranger to someone who stayed by his side no matter how hard things became. Days passed. Her fever broke, her strength returned, and with it, something new bloomed inside her courage. But courage often comes with tests. That evening, as the red sun dipped low, the sound of voices echoed near the ruins again. This time, the alien girl froze not from fear, but recognition. She knew those voices. They weren't just enemy soldiers. They were her people, her tribe. The soldier's face hardened. He grabbed his weapon and checked the chamber. "Stay down. If they find us, it's over." But she didn't move. Stood at the broken doorway, her eyes fixed on the shadows approaching. For the first time in weeks, she saw familiar faces, aliens of her kind, armed, armored, strong. Her chest tightened. A storm of emotions swirled inside her. She wanted to run to them. She wanted to scream their names. But then she remembered these were the same people who had abandoned her. They had called her weak, useless, a burden, and yet they were her blood. The voices grew closer. One of them shouted her name in their language. She gasped, her heart racing. They were looking for her. The soldier stiffened, weapon raised. "Kid, don't move." Before she could answer, the patrol appeared, torches glowing. When they saw her, their expressions shifted: shock, then anger, then cold calculation. One of them stepped forward, pointing at the human. Their words were sharp, cruel. She understood enough to know what they meant. They were calling him enemy. They were telling her to step away from him, to prove she wasn't a traitor. Her hands shook. She looked at the soldier. His eyes stayed on the aliens, steady and hard. He didn't beg. He didn't ask her to choose. He only whispered low, "Stay behind me." The aliens barked louder, demanding her return. One of them sneered and shouted a word she knew too well. Burden. Her stomach twisted. Memories flashed: her tribe leaving her behind, their mocking laughter, her lonely nights starving in the ruins, and then another memory. The soldier, shielding her from a drone with his own body, The soldier bringing her medicine even when it almost killed him. The soldier giving her a word she had never known before. Family tears burned in her eyes. The soldier glanced at her, voice rough. "Kid, it's your choice. I won't force you." The aliens shouted again, beckoning her. The alien girl stepped forward slowly. The soldier's chest tightened, but he didn't stop her. She walked until she stood between them, between blood and bond. The aliens grinned, thinking she had returned. But then she turned. She turned toward the soldier. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out, broken human speech, clear enough to understand. "He is my family." The aliens froze. The soldier blinked, stunned. The alien girl repeated, louder this time. "Family." The aliens erupted in rage. One raised a weapon, shouting about betrayal. But before they could move, the soldier fired a warning shot into the dirt, his voice like thunder. "Step back." The patrol hesitated. The girl stood trembling, but she didn't move away from him. Her body, small and weak, planted firmly by his side. The alien leader snarled, spitting in her direction. Then he barked a command, and the patrol withdrew, their torches disappearing into the night. But the message was clear. They would return, and next time. They would not leave without blood. Silence settled heavy after they were gone. The alien girl turned to the soldier, tears streaking down her face. Her voice cracked. "Choose. You." The soldier stared at her for a long moment, his chest tight. He had told himself she was only temporary. She wasn't his responsibility. Letting her stay was a mistake. But now, after hearing those words, something inside him shifted forever. He lowered his weapon and knelt in front of her. "Kid, do you know what you just did? You made yourself an outcast? They won't take you back now, ever?" She nodded, wiping her tears. Her small hands clutched his sleeve. Outcast. But family. The soldier's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. So he simply placed a hand gently on her head. "Yeah. Family." For the first time, she smiled without fear. It was small, fragile, but real. That night, the fire burned low, but inside the ruined shelter, warmth filled the space. The girl curled close, whispering the word over and over, as if memorizing it. Family. 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 The soldier stayed awake, staring into the flames, his mind heavy with thoughts. He had gained something unexpected, something dangerous, something beautiful. Her first real choice in life hadn't been blood. It hadn't been tribe. It had been him, and that made her no longer just a burden or a kid. She was his responsibility, his family. The night after her choice was the longest of her life. The alien girl lay awake beside the fire, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard her people's voices calling her burden, threatening the human who had saved her. But then she remembered what she had said, what she had chosen. "He is my family." That thought gave her strength. The soldier sat nearby, weapon across his knees, eyes sharp in the dark. He hadn't slept in 2 days, and his body ached from the wound that was still healing, but he didn't care. If the patrol returned, he was ready. As the firelight flickered, the girl whispered softly, almost to herself. "Family." The soldier glanced at her, then sighed. "You really like that word, don't you?" She nodded, her tired smile glowing faintly. "Family. Me. You." His lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't want to admit it, but her words warmed something inside him that war had long since frozen. The next morning, the ruins felt emptier than usual. The soldier knew they couldn't stay. Her tribe would return, and this time they would bring more soldiers, more weapons. Hiding in the broken city would only end with both of them dead. He stood, stretching his sore muscles. The kid were moving. The alien girl blinked, confused, moving. He pointed to the horizon. "We can't stay here. We'll build something else, somewhere safer." She tilted her head. The word build lingered in her ears. Slowly she repeated, "It build home?" The soldier paused, then nodded. "Yeah, a home." Her eyes widened, hope sparking in them. No one had ever said that to her before. A home, not just a place to hide, not just a corner to sleep in, something real. They walked for hours, through ruins, across fields of ash, until they reached the edge of a valley. The land was scarred but quieter, less patrolled. A stream cut through the rocks and broken trees still stood. Stubborn against destruction, the soldier scanned the area, his survival instincts sharp. Finally, he nodded. Here, we'll make it work. The alien girl looked around with wonder. To her, this wasteland looked like paradise. There was water, there was open space, and most of all there was him. They set to work. The soldier gathered broken metal scraps, wooden planks, and shattered stone. His hands were steady, practiced. He had built shelters in war zones before. Quick, strong, reliable. The girl followed him everywhere, carrying small pieces, holding beams in place, copying his movements. Every time she dropped something, she whispered, "Sorry." He grunted, "Keep going." Hour by hour, a shape began to rise. 4 walls, a roof patched with metal sheets, a fire pit inside, crude, imperfect, but theirs. By evening, the girl stood back, staring at it with wide eyes. Her throat tightened. She pressed her hands to her chest, whispering the word she had. Clung to like a prayer. Home. The soldier glanced at her, wiping sweat from his brow. "Don't get too excited. It's not much." But to her, it was everything. That night, they sat inside their new shelter, the fire casting warm light across the rough walls. The alien girl curled on the blanket he had spread on the floor. For the first time since he had met her, she wasn't shaking. She wasn't afraid. She looked at him, her eyes shining. "Me? Safe." The soldier nodded. "Yeah, kid. Safe." Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered something in her own language, a long string of soft, melodic words. He didn't understand, but the way she said it made his chest ache. "Does that mean?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then pressed her hand to her chest again. "Thank you, family." The soldier rubbed the back of his neck, looking away. He wasn't good at emotions. He wasn't good at promises. But when he looked back at her, this fragile, stubborn girl who had chosen him over her blood, he knew one thing. He wouldn't let her down. "Get some sleep," he muttered. "We've got work tomorrow. Home doesn't build itself." Smiled faintly, curling closer to the fire. Within minutes, she was asleep, her breathing calm, her face peaceful. The soldier sat awake, listening to the night. He thought about everything that had happened. A starving girl, abandoned by her people, had stumbled into his life. He had given her food, protection, a word family. And in return, she had given him something he thought he had lost long ago. Purpose. Days turned into weeks. The shelter grew stronger. They added a second wall, reinforced the roof, dug a small pit for storing water. The alien girl grew healthier, her steps steadier, her voice stronger. She learned more human words: fire, water, build, safe, and her favorite of all, family. Every evening she repeated it just to hear him answer. "Family," she would whisper. "Yeah," he would reply softly. Family. And slowly, against all odds, the ruined world outside didn't feel so heavy anymore. One evening, as the sun dipped below the valley and painted the sky in shades of red, the alien girl stood outside their shelter. She looked at the rough walls, the smoke curling from the fire pit, the human soldiers sitting tired but alive inside. Her throat tightened. She had no tribe anymore, no people. But here, in this small, patched-together shelter of scrap and stone, she finally had something greater. She stepped back inside, sat beside him, and whispered the words that had changed her life. "I'm home." The soldier looked at her, surprised. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was small, rare, but real. "Yeah, kid, we're home."